of course, the first thing that any business is concerned about would be, what does this mean for us as a business? Is it something that, are we supposed to stop as well? But I think looking at the way that they delivered the circuit breaker message, I think it was quite clear that it was important for us to continue functioning. And so we were one of the essential services that were allowed to continue working throughout the circuit breaker period. Of course, there were some challenges because even though we were allowed to work, many other industries were not, functioning. And so there were some initial issues with things like some of our packaging that were coming in from other countries, some of our, for example, cardboard boxes or plastic packaging, even some of the delivery services that we use. We ran into some issues also because some of the drivers were from overseas. I probably won't be able to comment on other farms, but I think that on the whole, we managed to continue our productions quite unscathed. So we were quite lucky in that sense. And I would say that, I wouldn't say that we have always actively prepared for such a scenario, but we were in a sense lucky because when we did our planning, our work planning and stuff like that, a lot of our thinking was revolved around how to make sure that there is continuity. And in this pandemic, it sort of allowed us to show that the plans that we've always had with regard to approaching the workflow and stuff like that were actually quite useful as a backup to disruptions in work supply. So that helped us quite a little bit. I wouldn't be able to say that I can comment on other farms and how prepared they were. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. End of the day, because the plants will grow regardless whether we're there or not. I think it was more important to make sure that the essential work continued to be done. So like the harvesting, the packing, the seeding and the transplanting. We were not able to engage with Apex Harmony Lodge because I think, especially with the elderly and with them having dementia, it was probably not very safe for them to come on. So we had to do without their services for a couple of weeks. But I think we managed to just continue, doing largely the same, just being a little bit more careful with our movement and, with social distancing and things like that. And I think that generally helped us to cope quite well. I wouldn't say that we were very adversely affected. It was a little bit tough and it was very weird, going to work when most of Singapore was staying at home. But I think it was also important for us to then see that it meant that we were very important in the whole ecosystem. I wouldn't say that all the other farms are exactly like us. We benefited because we have always believed in very local workforce. So most of the people that work with us are either Singapore PRs or they live here or are Singaporeans. And so, in that sense, we didn't have to struggle so much. I do know that some other farms, they may have a lot of workforce that comes from other countries, or they may be very dependent on maybe, let's say, Malaysian delivery personnel and things like that. So that has definitely impacted some of the operations. But at the same time, it's also good in a sense that everybody then starts to realize that the agricultural industry is really quite crucial to our well-being. That in situations like this, it is even more imperative that the farms continue to produce enough food for Singapore so that we don't have to worry so much about the food security issue. We still had some supplies that would last us for a couple of weeks. Of course, the instinctive reaction was to look for alternative suppliers, and also continue to work with the existing ones to see whether some of them could get a waiver and send some of the goods in. So it was actually a combination of these factors that allowed us to continue producing and continue working. Of course, the other thing that we didn't quite expect was that because of the circuit breaker period, people started going out and stockpiling a lot of fresh food. Even though there were assurances that there was enough food for everyone. So what that meant was that a lot of the supermarkets, in a day or two, a lot of the vegetables were just disappeared from the shelves, and there were a lot of empty shelves. And so our buyers, like for example FairPrice, NTUC FairPrice, they also came to us and said, hey, people are buying up the vegetables very quickly, and I think it also sends a strong message to people when you have stocks and shelves that are adequately stocked. So what we also did was that we of our own accord, we harvested some more vegetables earlier, and we sent it to FairPrice so that they could then restock their shelves and make it clear that there was no shortage of vegetables. But what that meant was that we were harvesting vegetables that were, probably 1 or 2 weeks from harvest. So that meant that, subsequently we had a slightly lower productivity rate because of us harvesting early. Well, the only measure that we really implemented was things like safe entry, temperature taking, and probably a little bit of social distancing. We reduced a lot of the tours and visits to the farm. But in terms of actual farm operations, I don't think we changed very much. We just made sure that everyone was a bit more careful about personal hygiene and personal health, and ensured that people were staying apart far enough. At the same time, we also make sure that there were backups in case any one of us fell sick. So operationally, there wasn't very much difference, just a bit more planning, for in case kind of scenario. I think hopefully with this COVID situation, the view on the importance of food security has brought the idea to the forefront. So a lot more people are conscious of it. I think for the past few years, it's something that has been growing in the consciousness of a lot of people, but mainly because of the environmental sustainability kind of angle, right? Because when you are able to grow food locally, it means that you have a lot less impact on the environment, and if you can figure out the most sustainable way of doing so, it actually benefits the planet. So that's from an environmental sustainability point of view. And we've sort of taken the food supply logistics chain for granted. But what this virus has done is that it has also brought the other more urgent side of things, which is that, if you don't have food production in near where you are living, then in case of supply disruption such as this pandemic, the biggest question is how do you feed yourself? So yeah, I think it's been quite good, and hopefully because of this, people are more aware, and we have more from the younger generation such as yourself to consider taking up some way of supporting the industry. It doesn't mean that you have to be a farmer, but you could work in research or even in engineering to figure out what are the better ways to grow and how the industry can benefit from technology and things like that. So I feel that with this growing awareness, definitely in the industry, it should see more interest. At the same time, it's also quite important that we focus on the people who are growing and the ability of these people to grow, rather than just assuming that technology can solve everything. Because we've been investing in technology for the past 10, 20 years, but not all of the technology has delivered. So even when you have the pandemic, not all the farms are equally able to adjust very quickly, and that would be regardless of the kind of technology level that they have. It's great that people are even considering something like joining the agricultural scene nowadays, because I can say safely that 10 years ago, if you ask any student, I don't think anybody would say that they want to be a farmer. But now with technology and with a lot more focus on the industry, people are actually being more open to it being a career choice. So my suggestion would be, educate yourself. Be very, very aware of the messaging that's out there on the internet, because the internet is quite a polarizing place. Some people, after watching videos, they say, "Oh, I only want to eat organic produce," or "I only want to eat plants that have been grown a certain way." But it's also very important to understand the context of that. And Singapore being such a land scarce country, you can't always follow what other people are saying. So you need to figure out what's best for yourself, what's best for your family, what works best in Singapore as well. And I think just generally retain an open mind, because everybody says something different. It's eventually up to you to take the arguments and figure out which one works best for you. So yeah, I mean, just keep learning, keep an open mind, and I think regardless, even if it's not in the agricultural industry, I think it's great that people are even thinking about such things like food security and environmental sustainability. So yeah, keep doing that.